Welcome back to the Restaurant Technology Guys podcast. I thank you guys for joining us out on the airwaves. It's always fun to come to you guys with new topics, new guests on the show, and today is no exception. We have not had this company or this guy on the show before, but it's always awesome to introduce you guys to new guests and new products. And so today we are joined by Ben, who's the VP of Sales at SoundHound, but really the restaurant division of SoundHound. Ben, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself, and then we can talk a little bit about what SoundHound is and dig into what you guys are trying to do to make the restaurant world a better place.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, my name is Ben Bellatini. I'm the VP of Sales at SoundHound for our restaurants-based products. I've been in some sort of restaurant technology sales role, either an IC role or a leadership role for the better part of 14 years. And so very excited to have joined SoundHound approximately a year back to lead our go-to-market strategy as we really start to tackle the restaurant industry. You kind of alluded to what SoundHound is and where we come from. SoundHound is a voice AI technology company. So we have our own in-house tech stack that focuses on housing voice AI for IoT devices. We actually started out as a music recognition app back in 2004, and we've migrated into supporting a number of different industries. So notably, where you'll find SoundHound technology deployed is in every Mercedes-Benz that gets produced today. When you say roll the windows down or Mercedes, what are directions to the nearest gas station? That's our technology that you're interacting with.
Very cool.
Actually, yeah, we're with a number of different automakers embedded in vehicle today using cloud technology. And then on the flip side, we're also in every Vizio TV that gets produced today. You say, take me to Netflix or XYZ command. That's our technology you're interacting with. So we have all of these deployments, all these devices. We saw a keen opportunity to start entering the restaurant space probably 18 months back. And AI is, we believe, soon to sweep, if not already, sweeping the restaurant industry.
Yeah, no, and I know we'll get into the use cases in just a little bit. I had no idea that SoundHound that's where you guys came from. I know of voice AI and kind of where that's at. Why don't you give a little bit more about your kind of background? Where else have you been restaurant tech? Because you've been 14 years. It's I'm sure you've seen lots of different technology changes in the last 14 years. I can look up your profile and all of that. But why don't you talk a little bit about that, because I think it will help with some of the tech pieces that we're going to talk about on where SoundHound's at and how you guys have kind of continued to migrate this product towards restaurants.
Very good. Yeah. So I started out my career in an IC sales role as one of the first 30 salespeople over at Yelp many moons ago, selling CPM advertising to restaurants. And so really got to learn the restaurant industry there and moved into a leadership role over at Yelp. Was with the company for about 7 years before going to Postmates to effectively build a massive sales organization from scratch. So this was 2015. Third party was still kind of hemming and hawing. Not the restaurant industry hadn't quite fully adopted third party DSPs at that point. Mm-hmm. But over the course of 4.5 years, we really were able to grow a very sizable sales team and go to market strategy, selling from single mom and pop restaurants all the way up to your largest enterprise QSRs as well. And really, we were trying to create incremental revenue streams for restaurants to source revenue that they wouldn't have otherwise had at the point where someone's saying, who should I order from tonight? And so that platform really enabled us to scale. We all know that COVID really kind of fast forwarded a lot of that adoption from the restaurant industry with third-party DSPs. But look, all that knowledge has kind of put me in a good place to come into SoundHound and support restaurants here as well. I love being at a company where the technology is transforming how consumers interact with restaurant merchants or how they transact with restaurant merchants. And the two former spots where I landed previously have that, and SoundHound certainly does as well.
Yeah, no, it's you've made some good choices on the career side. Yeah. I actually had the restaurant person from Yelp on recently on the show, and as far as the third party DSPs, we've never had any of the direct DSPs on the DoorDashes and Uber Eats of the world, but we've definitely had the people that have integrated the tech into the restaurant. So for any of those longtime listeners, you guys probably remember my interview with the Yelp lady, as well as some different people that are helping with that. So AI is all the rage, and I say it's all the rage, but it is kind of one of those things that a lot of people don't really understand. So why don't we take it down to kind of the I guess the base level? How does AI work? What is AI? What is voice AI? I've personally gotten educated, but I'd love for you to educate some of our audience about what is voice AI, and like, is it just the ability to roll down my windows in my Mercedes? I know that's not it, but why don't we talk about kind of what is AI and what does voice AI actually even mean for those that are uneducated about voice AI? Because I was just walking around, I saw your guys' team at NRF in January in New York, and I'm like, I think every third booth had either machine learning or AI in it, if not every other booth. So.
Yeah. I always like to tell folks, look, we were in AI before it was real cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Certainly it's taken off. We've been doing this since 2004. I think zooming out, a really good frame of reference for thinking through AI is it's some sort of technology that enables you to automate some function in your life, whether it's via voice or whether it's generating a poem, which I've recently seen. It's some sort of form of technology to automate an actual workflow or produce a product. And so when we think about AI in our world today, a lot of our most common interaction points are devices around the home. And the way that those are typically built is in these single, at least for voice AI, these single command or query instances. Hey, blank, what's the weather today in my area, right? So that's voice AI as a frame of reference, how most folks have had exposure to it. And in a Mercedes-Benz, with our technology, there's kind of two different core functions it can produce. It can produce edge technology, which focuses on, supporting functions that actually power the vehicle, put the windows down, put my windshield wipers on to X setting. But then also cloud technology as well. Who's playing in the, Warrior game tonight? Who are they playing? What time? Right. So we have the capacity to hit the cloud and then actually return back intelligent answers that aren't necessarily at the fingertips of the AI. And then how we're actually manifesting this in terms of restaurants is we really have identified an opportunity in our go-to-market to create automation for consumers to place orders with merchants. And there's many different use cases. We'll probably touch on a few today.
Yep.
But that AI really helps close the loop on a customer interaction and transaction and helps both the business and the customer automate that experience.
Yeah, no, and I think it's, I appreciate you giving us an education, because I think all of us have been exposed to, whether it's Siri on our iPhones or, Google Voice on your Android phone or Alexa. Everybody has dealt with it in some way, some shape, some form. Talk to me about how you guys are thinking about that for the restaurants. Like, what's the most basic use case? Because I've seen quite a few, and I know that you guys have got quite a few that you guys are working towards. But is it ordering from my Alexa? Is it ordering at the drive-thru? Is it having some robot taking my order at cashier? I know the answers to these things, but I'd love to talk through kind of where you guys see that evolution, and where do you think that the most basic automation is going to be able to help to create a better customer experience. Again, oftentimes on the show, we talk about technology for technology's sake is worthless. Technology that makes businesses better, more efficient, better guest experience is really where you need to focus. And so talk to me a little bit about kind of where you guys started from a use case and how you've seen it build. And then we can talk about customer adoption and customer failures. I'm sure there's been some, but let's talk through that, because it's tech and it's new tech and it's tech that's exciting and out there.
Very good. Yeah. And before I hit on that, I just want a quick frame of reference. I failed to do it moments ago, but when we think about AI, I want to really stress, one, our AI is completely proprietary to us. So this is our tech stack. There's maybe a handful of other folks that actually own their own tech stack when it comes to voice AI. We certainly do. And when we say we have conversational AI, this is truly a lot of deep meaning and depth to what we can actually support from an end user and our technology perspective. So
yeah, that's a huge differentiator.
Yeah, and I think it's important to stress that too, because if you think about interactions with AI that you may have had previously, a lot of that again is, like I mentioned before, what's the weather, right? But when you think about what SoundHound can provide and then how it actually helps in these restaurant use cases, we can handle really, really complex queries or questions that are thrown at us by end users. So things like context, if somebody in a restaurant experience actually places an order and then needs to go back and edit some component of their cart, we have the capacity to do that because we keep context throughout the entire ordering experience. In some instances, when you're dealing with AI, you throw multiple queries at once at the system, it will fumble that. Our AI separates because we have the capacity to actually triage and handle multiple different queries or questions all at once. What does that look like? Hey, can I add cheese to that burger? And what's the price of that? Right? Most systems can't actually handle that. So I think the way people think about AI today, a lot of the exposures that you may have had, the tech is ready, right? It's just about finding the right vendor.
Well, and one of the things that we find even in the point of sale world that continues to be a point of contention even for restaurant operators is the fact that the soccer mom is coming in, and point of sale oftentimes is a very linear path when you're ringing up something. But when somebody's talking to you, a good cashier is going to take, your order and internalize it and then translate it to the point of sale. Oftentimes, and I'm sure you've walked into a fast food place and you go, they ask you, is it for here to go? Before you even start, it's like, I haven't even ordered anything. You don't even know what I want. I might just want to know where the bathroom is, but you already start with, are you for here to go? And then you've got to order the entree, and then you've got to order the side, and then you got to order the drink. And when you're the soccer mom and you got 3 kids and they're running around and they want to go to the play place, like, it's impossible to do that. Obviously, consumers have been trained to think that way and to do that. And at the same time, my 7-year-old daughter has not been trained at this point. So she doesn't order the sandwich and then the fries and then the drink. She says, I don't know, I want a chocolate shake and give me the waffle fries or the curly fries, and I want the chicken sandwich. She doesn't necessarily order it the way that the point of sale might do that. Talk to me a little bit about how AI can help, I guess, triangulate, create those things, because to your point on context, you get all of the data elements and then you guys can, materialize them into what the business might need to be able to act on it.
Yeah. I think one example of this, or one thing that's quite interesting in terms of how we handle some of these quite variable instances, I think, which is what you're referring to today. Yeah. Each region has kind of a different iteration of a dialect, right? And of course, there are many, many different languages that we all speak. But SoundHound is actually deployed with over 30 languages that we support today. And a lot of that was driven by a lot of our auto manufacturing deployments. So we've actually assessed, and we have, to your point, you said the hot phrase, machine learning, that's assessing all those billions of queries that we've accumulated over the course of the years of our IoT deployments. And so when people speak with strong accents, when they speak with strong Southern accents or Northeastern accents, our system has an exceptional capacity to be able to deal with all of these different iterations of dialect, right? And I think many of these are regionalized, and many other AIs may struggle with this, but we can help with those quite variable instances that that may hit. And one thing that's really interesting too, I mean, U.S. business is a melting pot. A lot of the individuals that we're supporting these businesses, maybe all of their staff is ESL, or the people that are calling in maybe speaking a different dialects. And so when you plug in AI to support that customer experience, it can be a massive lift for an interaction point in an ordering instance. So, I mean, that's just one example of how AI can help.
Yeah, it's funny. I chuckled when you talked about the dialects. We have a sales rep that works for a company that lives in Rhode Island, and he's got a very, very thick accent. And we were at a different customer doing a presentation, and we were talking afterwards, and the customer would say, "Oh, where are you from? Where are you from? Where are you from?" And he said, "Rhode Island." And he said, "Rhode Island." And the way he said it, the customer was like, "Oh, where's that?" Because he didn't understand that he actually meant that he said Rhode Island. He couldn't even understand what he was saying. And we weren't like, but the guy's got such a thick accent that we're like, oh yeah, we have to translate for him for time to time, just because his accent. I guess talk to me a little bit about how the computer is learning these things, because some of these self-learning models, and again, in tech, a lot of people don't comprehend that these self-learning models continue to get better over time. The more and more data they get, the better they're going to understand that my coworker from Rhode Island, he said Rhode Island this way, and I might say it, a different way, and you're going to say it a third way. But the AI, this artificial intelligence is learning the different dialects and the different ways that people say it, but they all mean the same thing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So, I mean, let's think of a really practical example of this today, right? I may say Coke, someone else may say Coca-Cola, someone may say soda pop. And that's just one, item that someone could order, right? And so a lot of the back-end work that we do to map different expressions to the way we think of them as our core ordering options in a restaurant domain or experience. There's a ton of back-end work that we do, and much of it is driven by machine learning to best associate all the different iterative ways that someone might actually try to order a product or item. I think one other thing that's really interesting about our technology, especially applied to a restaurant instance, is, I'm thinking of someone going up to the register and trying to place an order. Think of all the non-ordering lingo that's flying around.
Yes.
When you're actually trying to place that order. So there's this almost stream of consciousness where our AI system is listening in, but just trying to parse out specifically when someone's saying words or phrases that intend to reflect menu items or modifiers or, whatever it might be related to the menu. And so a lot of times we can actually, listen to 74 different words and kind of parse all of those out. And then the second someone says cheeseburger, our system immediately recognizes that. And so you can't get thrown off, throw off our system by throwing a lot of non-order, commands or statements at it. What's interesting too is our technology even has the ability to support non-ordering questions in an end user and AI interaction. So if you say, hey, what are the hours of the business, or where are you located, or what's parking look like? Do you have any gluten-free options? There are a lot of non-ordering instances that we support as well, which is pretty interesting.
Well, and again, a lot of times, I want to get into the use cases, because I do think it's important for people to comprehend that it's not the call in American Express and you're sitting there listening to this auto attendant where you're like, zero, attendant. Again, I'm picking on American Express. It could be Visa, it could be American Airlines, it could be any of them. But a lot of them that have this auto attendant, a lot of times when I talk to restaurants about AI and or voice AI, they think of it as this nameless, faceless, and not that it isn't nameless and faceless, but it's not linear. It grows and learns and understands what you're doing contextually. It's not there. So what is the most common use case? Like, is it really just that phone order? Is it drive-through? Is it kiosk? Is it I think there's a lot of different applications, but talk to me about really where most people are starting and what are they finding that it's helping? Because I think it's really cool what some of the stuff you guys are already doing.
Yeah, very good question. So in terms of application and use cases that our technology actually supports, many of those use cases are ordering experiences between a customer and the merchant. And obviously these, since we are a voice AI company, need to be voice ordering experiences.
Yeah.
You nailed the kind of core go-to-market that we've started with, which is phone. If you look at the phone today, and you go in any business, phone is almost always going to be second tier to the customer in-house. And so many times customers are calling in, they're not getting through, they're getting put on hold. Multiple customers are calling in at the same time. And either those are getting put on hold or just never getting picked up. And so when we think about this customer experience, we're constantly thinking about, how do I serve the customer in-house so that they're leaving here with a really, pun intended, good taste in their mouth about our business. And what our experience does is enables you to kind of forget about the less palpable customer that still needs that soft touch, that white glove approach. And our AI makes sure that they don't wait, takes accurate orders, speeds up their process. And to kind of peek ahead, we have the capacity to increase check sizes and do a lot. So phone's kind of a really, really obvious way where we can help. What we're finding, especially as we move up market, supporting a lot of different QSRs, is there's an appetite to really speed up and automate drive-through lanes. And
well,
so,
and I think even in the phone, let me dig in the phone real quick, Ben, just because I even have I personally have an itch that I'd love for you guys to scratch as it relates to that. I happen to have a family of 6, so going out to dinner is not an easy experience. We go out a lot because I'm in the restaurant business and I like to eat out, but oftentimes I'm calling to figure out what is the wait time and can they seat us, because I don't want to drive 20 minutes to go have dinner and then show up and have them not be able to seat us. I've got 4 kids, so I've got to always figure out the no veto rule. And if I show up to a place and I can't eat there and I got to go find another place, it's a 10-minute conversation to figure out where the heck we're going next. And it might be 20 minutes the opposite way. And so oftentimes my engagement might not be even in ordering, but to go figure out how long is the wait list and can I get in for a party of 6? If the restaurant doesn't have a digital experience, is that a use case that you guys can solve at this point? Is that something that you guys are in a place where, hours of operation, again, is another one that I call often. Are you guys open? How late are you guys open? How much longer? There's a barbecue place here in town where I live. They close early. Hey, how much, do you guys still have brisket in? Do you guys still have, whatever it is that I want? I will call over there, but I don't know, probably 5 times out of 10, the phone just rings and rings and rings, or I get the, pick up, hold, please. And I have already driven there and I'm already in the parking lot by the time they pick back up the queue. And so I'd love to have you riff on that for just a couple of minutes, if you don't mind. And then we can talk through drive-through. I don't mean to cut you off.
No.
But I think it's huge for people because you don't understand. And so many people, even that are busy with phone orders, I know there's full industry for call centers that you're paying tens of, not hundreds of thousands of dollars to have somebody sit off-site doing the same work that now AI can automate some of this stuff.
I'm glad you dug in, because it can be a big friction point too for customers to capture this information in its ready state. Like, how is it active right now? And sometimes there's a lot of different platforms that won't support some form of active information that you can source. The good news is, if the way that we look at it is, if there's a digital experience online, or if there is your point of sale system that's housing some sort of data that the consumer may need. And so as long as the merchant is managing that data effectively, then our AI system in many cases can pick that up and feed that back to the customer, right? One interesting example of this right now is, think about a business where you'd have to actually potentially place a reservation. You call up front, that host may be seating somebody right now. They might not be able to actually pick up the phone, right? So our system can actually handle that consumer and enable them to place a reservation. And there's a number of different kind of revenue actions where that's what we're hearing from merchants, is like, how do we recover revenue? Margins are super tight. It may not be even about creating those revenue streams, but creating safety nets behind the revenue streams you already have to make sure you're recovering potentially lost revenue too.
Well, and you talked about even automating some of the common tasks that happen. Once you understand what those things are, you can build these models that can help with that, whether that's a reservation or that's going on the wait list or that's telling somebody what time they're open till, or, do they have handicapped accessible parking, or do they have a gluten-free option? Just, again, people don't comprehend how often that, you have to do that. And with where the labor pool is today, in 2023, it's hard enough to hire people, nonetheless, to get them trained up to be able to do these things.
Yeah. I mean, speaking from my just personal experience, I cannot tell you the last time I walked through the restaurant's doors and I didn't see a help wanted sign. I mean, look, I'm sure those that are listening on this call, it's not news that labor shortages are critically impacting our ability to effectively serve the customer right now, or at least maintain, let's say, the same level of customer service that we typically had. There's a unique kind of storm or climate right now with increasing wages, thinning margins, with food costs rising. And so, as if, restaurant margins weren't already razor thin, and ensuring that we're capitalizing on revenue opportunities with consumers interacting with businesses, now it's like ever important that we're capitalizing on those and giving the guests a really good experience. And so we are seeing a massive uptick in demand. I mean, we've had literally thousands of inquiries from restaurants who are saying, I need help. I can't staff these typical channels.
Yep.
We had kind of a soft touch interaction. How can you help me triage some of these consumer interaction points? And that's what the AI does to solve. Phone is one good use case there.
Yeah, well, and I just I was just walking around a very large mall in the Midwest yesterday actually, and it was amazing how many stores were closed closed with signs on the door that says we don't have staff to open today. Like I probably saw 15 of them in this mall, which was insane to me. I'm thinking to myself, oh my goodness, the fact that 15 stores weren't able to open because they could not staff them. I know all of our restaurants that are sitting on are listening, that are listening have very, very similar challenges where they can't open. I mean, and again, last week I was in Houston and I went into a nationally recognized chain, and the wait was 30 minutes for our party, not because they didn't have seats in the dining room. They didn't have staff to serve us.
Yeah.
And they said that. They said, we've got one server on the floor. We can't overseat them because you'll have a bad experience. So you get to wait outside until that server frees up a little bit, which was a shame because ultimately they lost probably $150 to $200 order from our group because they couldn't staff it. And, if they didn't have to, and again, not to say that we want to automate everything, but if they didn't have to have a host be there full time, if the host was there to answer the phone and 80% of the time, how much more could they have potentially served those guests from a revenue opportunity perspective?
Yeah, it's a great point too. And look, I think for those listening right now too, I think there is maybe, we're at this phase where adoption is really increasing with AI, but I'm sure there's still folks that are out there that are thinking right now, is the automation less personalized?
Yep.
And is this a good enough experience for the customer? Well, one, as long as the AI is there, which it is with SoundHound, it is. But two, I think the other thing to look at is what does that guest experience look like right now? You just said it yourself.
Yeah.
What if we could redeploy some of the staff that is currently front of house to help with back of house? And what if we could process more tickets and more guests in a really, really speedy fashion? And right now, customers care about convenience and speed, right? And so waiting 7 minutes at a table for my waters to hit the table and to get my first initial greeting, that's not a better customer experience than speedy, rapid triaging there. And so we're not, look, we see our AI not at all in labor and employee replacement. All we want to do is actually create fewer headaches for the staff that's at house right now, that we can support some of these channels and augment, some of those typical interactions.
Well, and I think creating revenue opportunities that you're probably missing today. Again, we've got a chain that we work with that said it. They go, we know we're missing probably $1 million worth of sales across the 70 stores that we have because we don't answer the phone. We don't answer the phone fast enough. The kitchen have capacity. Our staff has capacity to make the food. We don't have capacity to pick up the phone and take that order. And, we've driven more and more people to the online ordering experience, and that helps. But at the end of the day, if I picked up that phone, because again, I have 4 kids. Our longtime listeners know that. Oftentimes when I'm driving home from soccer practice, I don't have time to get on my phone and go order the food. I want to call the restaurant while I'm driving there, order the food, go pick it up, and leave. And if I can't get that, ultimately I won't go back.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I just one last thing to add on there. I think, it's so interesting when we do talk to third party, when we do talk to QSRs and restaurants. I think there's also this kind of hidden unknown with the phone, because maybe you don't pick it up that much. You don't realize how much revenue is still trying to penetrate through there.
Yep.
I think third party DSPs have gotten us to a point where there's kind of this perception that the revenue is now flowing online. And look, there has certainly been a lot
because the guest experience was awful. Right. That's why they had you. And I'm not sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. It's awful. It's an awful guest experience. And so they have to find some way. If I want that product, that's the only way I'm going to get it that night. Is to go on a third party delivery or go on the app to go get that, because calling is useless.
Yeah, and look, 39% of off-premise orders are still getting placed through the phone today. I mean, that's an incredibly
39%. That's
sizable
an
number.
interesting statistic.
Yeah, and so I mean, that think about, you don't think of that as a revenue source today, but a lot of that's just because you're not looking at your phone provider data to see how many missed calls you actually got.
Yep.
Right?
Or how
It's
many
just
calls did you have dropped because they answered it and then they were on hold for 12 minutes and they just hung up?
it's a hidden hole. You're not really seeing that the true, revenue potential, because it's again, it's not the customer that's right in front of you.
Yeah. So, Ben, talk to me a little bit about. You started to talk about it, and I cut you off, and I apologize. But you were talking about what does that look like to order through this AI? Is it the robot that I'm? How many times have we all yelled at Alexa or Siri, and we're like, no, you don't understand what the heck I'm talking about. I've seen your product. I wouldn't have you guys on if I didn't believe that it really can be as good, and quite frankly, oftentimes better than a human being might be to take that order. Whether you say that, cheeseburger with extra pickles and no mustard on it, that experience, not only is it consistent because it's a computer that's doing it, but also, it's going to always show up. It's not going to ever call in late. It's not going to ever call in sick, but also these learning models. So talk to me a little bit about whether it be phone or through the drive-through or talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there's kind of two different consumer ordering experiences, the way that we think about it. So two kind of separated products. We talked a little bit about phone already. I won't drill too much in on that. I think the key there is, look, when you call in, you're greeted by our voice AI that prompts you to ask questions or order. And then we go back and through via text-to-speech technology where we're prompting the consumer to order, we're confirming what they're ordering, enabling them to make modifications. So as long as your point of sale system allows it.
But it sounds like a regular human. It doesn't sound like a robot. And again, I don't want to this whole, it's not going to sound like Rosie the robot from the Jetsons. Like, it's going to actually sound like a human being talking to you. And if you weren't wise enough, you oftentimes wouldn't. But this is the thing that I hear, and I'm trying to, I know I keep teeing you up for these types of things, but I'm sure you talk to restaurant operators that think, oh, it's going to be Rosie the robot, and everybody's going to be like, oh, I hate this. Give me the real person. But at the end of the day, if you're not wise to understand that this AI is truly AI, it very well, I'm sure fools people all day long, every day.
Yeah, it's true. It's funny enough, we've gotten requests for different celebrity voices and whatnot, and I think that's a testament to how well the team has done producing a very lifelike AI conversational experience. I said conversational AI earlier in the conversation, and I think that's really key because that's a distinct separator for us.
Yep.
We have the ability to really synthesize and assess exactly what people mean by a patent deep meaning understanding. So a lot of the way, I don't want to go too deep into the tech, but a lot of the way it works through other AIs is it does kind of this transcription and then tries to kind of auto map to a different answer that the system may provide. But what we do is we truly try and synthesize each word, each phrase, the intent behind it, and have much better responses because of how we've actually innately built our technology from the ground up. And you're right. I mean, it is relatively lifelike. We don't want it to be too lifelike and actually fool the consumer. We want to be transparent that you're communicating with AI, but it's conversational.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and talk to me a little bit about those consumers that want to opt out. So they're in the middle of a conversation with an AI. They're struggling with it because they wanted this item that's off menu and it can't translate that, and the model doesn't work for them. What does that look like for the consumer? What does that look like for the restaurant brand, that whether it's phone orders or drive-through orders or whatnot?
There's a ton of optionality about how we can handle that customer. That's a really, really good point. There's a number of ways where we can actually make sure, dependent on use case, that consumer is able to connect with an employee at location, whether that's pass-through language. Let me speak to a human, or I want to talk to a person. We enable, depending on the merchant's settings, enable those consumers then to get back to the store. We also have, depending on the use case, call center backup or support if that business is, just like we talked about earlier, unable to actually support those calls or those interactions that are coming through. And so we do have kind of restaurant specific call center support that can back end the AI as well to make sure that we're capturing 100% of the interactions, either through AI or support. The good news is a fractional percentage of our interactions ever end up there. Beyond 9 out of 10 times, the AI is handling it itself.
Yeah, and that's 9 out of 10 orders that no human being needs to interact with as it's going through it. And so now you get 90% of your time back. Right. Talk to me a little bit about you've alluded to it a couple of times, is getting the order into the system. And obviously not every point of sale system is going to have integration, so I get that, but we can start with the ones that do. Does it look just like a human being or a web order coming into the system? Is that kind of what happens, whether it be a phone order, or drive-through order, or some other interaction from voice? Talk to me a little bit about what does it look like, not to the end user, but to the restaurateur, to the merchant, as you talked about?
Yeah, really good question. First off, hats off to our integrations team, if they are indeed listening to this call.
Integrations are awful. They're so hard, but okay, I'll let you keep going.
It's not easy though. I mean, you're saying that though, because you've seen so many instances.
Thousands of them, and they're pain in the butt.
Just flops. It doesn't go right. But I really have to kind of stress the experience from a merchant's perspective that our integrations team internally has set up. We have tremendous integration into the POS systems that we support today. And so if a customer calls in, they place an order, they pay and finish up, then that order fires through into the point of sale system, into the KDS, ticket prints out, to your point, just like it's an online order. So when you look at the operation of supporting on the back end an order that's placed through AI, and except for a couple quick data points that print out on a ticket and maybe a dining option that's set, you wouldn't know otherwise that it wasn't an online order. So it's super, super seamless in terms of processing and picking up these tickets on the back end.
I love it. And for those that you do have the integration with, I'm assuming product mix and what's available on the menu, like what happens in the case of an LTO, and you've got an LTO that's coming out and your AI doesn't know the model for we're recording in the middle of Lent right now. And Arby's now has fish. Like Arby's never has fish, 10 months out of the year, 11 months out of the year, they don't have fish. But for the 6 weeks, they realize that their sales are going to be really struggling on a Friday if they don't have fish. So they put out an LTO to put out this fish. And again, I'm picking on a really large brand. But what happens in that case where the model doesn't understand the cod sandwich or whatever it is that Arby's is selling nowadays? How do you guys deal with that modeling and the LTOs? And then the flip side of that answer, if you could, Ben, is when you go out of stock on something, when we've run out of something, do you guys be able to, can you guys manage your way through both of those scenarios?
Yeah. So let's start with the latter of those two first. So for 86 items, we support that today. As long as that setting is updated within the point of sale system, we basically check on that via the API for every item and frankly modifier that gets associated with any order. So if it's out of stock, we see it. It doesn't have to be a core item either. It can be a modifier. We can do 5-6 different levels of nested modifiers. We can do half and half pizza. If you have the configuration within your point of sale system, we can support it. And in terms of what's really interesting, I'm glad you mentioned the LTOs. We were actually recently with a QSR and demoing an experience, and they said, "Hey, what happens if we wanted to add this, X item to the menu? How fast could you get it up and live?" And that's actually one of the key separators of SoundHound, because of all these different domains that we support and the billions of different queries we've processed already. We have a very, very mature AI, and so we don't require a lot of machine learning to get up and running. And with how frequently menu items change for merchants, we have the capacity to effectively, I shouldn't say immediately, but imminently change items, update menus, and have seamless consumer ordering experiences off of those as well.
I love it. Thanks for, and again, I'm asking you questions that I get asked when I'm talking about products like yours to our customers, because everybody's different. They have a different worldview and trying to comprehend. The last, I guess, line of thought I want to have on this is we're in the hospitality industry, and a lot of people, and we talked about it a little bit, but what, I guess we're looking to enhance the guest experience, and you hear people that, Olo just got done with their conference this week, and the Noah, the founder of Olo, put out a video that kind of went through what he sees the restaurant of the future looking like. Where I walk up to Ben's table and I realize Ben and Jeremy are having a business dinner, and I realize that Ben likes red wines from Napa Valley, and so I offer Ben a red wine from Napa Valley because the AI has told me that Ben is here because his phone checked in, or some way to do that. And one of the comments this morning, first thing, when he posted this video is, you take all of the hospitality out of hospitality. But at the end of the day, I don't agree. I think that enabling computers, 20 years ago, I memorized 20 phone numbers. Now I don't memorize any phone numbers because my phone has it. Why would I need to memorize phone numbers when my phone has it in there and I can look it up faster than I can memorize it? No different than AI. I used to remember, when Ben came in, every time he liked red wines from Napa Valley. And every time I was there and I served Ben, I got that. But Jeremy's not there anymore because he left because of COVID, or he's, moved on to another store, or he's left the brand. Now what happens to Ben's experience, the Cheers experience? AI is going to help with that. Talk to me a little bit about where do you see the hospitality being enhanced? And for those that are fearful that you're taking all of the hospitality out of the hospitality industry, why is AI something that everybody needs to be looking at? Because I do genuinely believe that there's a use case for every single business to implement AI and machine learning.
I have a lot of thoughts here, being in this industry for almost 15 years. You talked a little bit about personalization. That's of keen interest to me. Let me get there in a second. I think the number one thing practically for our product is consistency.
Yep.
How many times have you had an employee call out sick? How many times have you tried to get an employee to really hone in on upselling that brownie at the end of the conversation? They just forgot to do it.
Yep.
And processed 70 guest orders in a 2-hour window and didn't do it once, right? Our system can be programmatically configured on behalf of the merchant to do that every single time without fail. And so consistency across a number of different cohorts is something that you can expect from AI. And so what that does is not only that improves potential revenue lines for restaurants, but that also provides opportunities for really, really strong and uniform branding for these businesses.
Yep.
We didn't really talk about all of our use cases today. Of course, we support phone, we support drive-through customer interaction points. We support kiosks, we support in-app. And one thing that's unique to SoundHound is we can provide a really, really unique voice interaction experience across all of these different platforms, branded specifically to your liking, where you're using one vendor for all these different interaction points. And so I think uniformity and consistency is key. I'm really interested about how customer data and customer transaction history can improve the consumer experience as well.
Mm-hmm.
How easy would it? Think of the last time. I'm thinking of the time where I had to call, to your point, for a large family and place 17 different items. Well, I'm unfortunately a pretty predictable person.
Yep.
When I call into my favorite place, I'm ordering the same thing over and over again. And so how great can it be when, instead of, as a customer, calling and placing a 5.5-minute order in a grueling background noise, and you can't kind of understand what the other individual is saying, and the system prompts you and say, "Hey, Ben, thanks for calling in again. Are you interested in placing the same order as you did last time?"
Yep.
And all of a sudden, that's a 14-second experience, and maybe my card's on file. So there's so much opportunity to just make people's lives easier, both on the merchant side and on the consumer side, with the adoption of this technology.
Well, and it's funny because you get all of the people that are all about, personalized data and security. It's like, but when's the last time you logged out of your Google account and logged into Chrome and tried to browse the internet? When's the last time you went into Twitter or Facebook or, in incognito mode? It's really a difficult experience when it's not customized to you. And so understanding that people do want the Cheers experience as often as they can. And if AI can help with that, whether it's at the drive-thru or it's on the phone order or it's in the dining room, they want that. And so what does engagement look like with engaging with your team, Ben? You're the VP of sales, you're looking to get word out about this because there's so few, if there's 700,000 restaurants in the US, you guys have a very small market penetration at this point, but I do truly believe that 10 years from now, we're not going to know what we did without it. And so what does engagement look like with you guys? Who's the ideal client? How do they engage with your team? What does that look like since you get to, head up the restaurant segment?
Yeah, excellent question. So I think when you look at all the different storefronts that exist, you can be a mom and pop shop that's been in, the family business for a century, or you can be a franchisee that's part of a large QSR, or you can be, the corporate CIO or CTO of a QSR. It doesn't really matter your business type. There is a voice AI use case to support it. And so we have voice AI experts really at every different level that can help guide you through the implementation of this technology. I think the other thing too is, look, this isn't, we don't want just a simple cookie cutter experience for everybody too. So when you do speak to somebody on the team, they're going to help guide you through a lot of the different types of settings that we can create for you, customizing an experience that enables it to feel very, very similar to the customer experience that optimally they get with you today, that they may not get with the kind of consistency they want. And so we certainly welcome the conversation. We come through the aspect of, how can we support whatever channel it may be with your voice AI needs, and customize a solution for you.
I love it. I love it. So when do I get to order food from my Vizio TV? Is that coming soon?
I am so glad you asked that, because that is the dream state. Look,
Yeah.
We are going to create a very, very dense populace of merchants that are using our technology, and all those IoT platforms I was talking about earlier, whether they be auto, you're in vehicle driving home, and you want to order on the way home, but you want to be hands-free. If you're in front of your TV, you're popping up Netflix at 6:30 on Friday, you want to order a pizza. That's something that you're going to see very, very soon.
I love it. I love it. So soundhound.com, or what's the website that they need to go check out to learn more about your guys' stuff and engage with somebody on your team?
Absolutely. Just go to soundhound.com, navigate to our restaurant site, and feel free to submit a form, and we'll be happy to help you.
Awesome. Well, Ben, I thank you for the education. I'm genuinely excited about, I clearly have opinions about this, and I'm a restaurant tech guy, but I do see it making the world a better place. And while I can understand the nefarious nature of self-learning AI, I do think that it is going to make our lives easier. And I do think that and even Alexa, as much as we might tease about Alexa being difficult, I promise you it's a heck of a lot easier when I tell it to turn off my bedroom lights in my bedroom, and rather than having to get out of bed, or my wife and I tease about the clapper from 20 years ago. But it makes my life easier, and I'm willing to pay for that convenience. And so the fact that you guys are doing this is not only going to help the restaurant brands, but it's going to help the consumer create a better guest experience. So to our listeners, guys, we know that you guys have got tons of choices, as I say on the onset. While you guys are online checking out SoundHound, please go subscribe to the podcast if you guys haven't already done so. Lastly, go give it a rating on your favorite podcast player, because it helps others find it. If you found this episode interesting, share it with other colleagues. Ben, thank you so much for your time, and to our listeners, make it a great day.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Awesome. I'm going to add Fiona